We all know how strong Storm's powers are, but one of the things that makes Storm such a threat is how dangerous she is without her powers. We've already taken a look at one such scene when Storm went to hell and fought a horde of demons with no access to her powers. Now it's time to go to the very first time. Today, it's all about Storm versus Callisto, a fight that was so epic, so iconic to Storm and X-Men history that it's been adapted into animation and even referenced in live action. Let's dive in.
Certainly.
Callisto is the leader of the underground group of mutants known as the Morlocks. She possesses superhuman strength, agility, and heightened senses, as well as the ability to sense the powers of other mutants. Her hard life in the gritty underbelly of society has made her ruthless and cunning, and while Storm developed into a compassionate, caring leader, Callisto only grew harder. She became the type to do anything necessary to accomplish her goals, and definitely has an idea of, I take what I want, as we see as she claimed Angel for her own and wanted to marry him, leading to issue 170 of the Uncanny X-men. In this issue, we have Storm, Nightcrawler, and Colossus tied up at the mercy of the Morlocks. We have a bound Angel forced to be the groom to Callisto's bride. Kitty Pryde is also being held by the Morlocks and is gravely ill. The rescue of their friends and teammates inspires Storm, Colossus, and Nightcrawler to eventually break free, each of them using their own powers to either overpower, outmaneuver, or outthink the Morlocks. This eventually leads to them gaining a momentary upper hand, with Nightcrawler holding Callisto hostage, only agreeing to release her once their friends are released. But even as Storm goes along with it, she can't help but think of the fact that this doesn't really give them much of an advantage, because if they call Nightcrawler's bluff, Kitty is going to die. While Storm is thinking all this over, she ends up getting touched by one of the Morlocks, who inflicts her with a grave illness. The X-Men are tied up again. They're bound even tighter this time. And it is here that Callisto tells the X-Men that even though they're all mutants, the Morlocks are vastly different than the X-Men. At this point, one of the Morlocks approaches with Kitty Pryde, whose condition has grown even worse. He begs for her to be spared, but Callisto is not willing to let them leave in order to get her some help. The Morlocks state that Callisto is not the type to falter or change her mind, and by Morlock law, the only way they would listen to anyone else is if they defeat Callisto in trial by combat. Nightcrawler steps up as the dashing swashbuckler that he is and issues the challenge to Callisto, but it will be Storm, their leader, who actually fights Callisto. Nightcrawler is worried right away, and for good reason. Storm's still dealing with the sickness that was inflicted on her by plague, and he isn't willing to risk Kitty Pryde's life on what he calls an idiotic gesture. But even with this being the case, Storm is persistent. Callisto accepts the challenge and reassures Nightcrawler that once she's done with Storm, he'll get his turn. Before they begin the fight, Callisto gives Storm a warning that this fight is to be done with no powers. If she releases as much as a stray lightning strike or gust of wind, Kitty's life will instantly be cut down. Storm agrees. Callisto chucks her a blade. Storm quickly catches it in air, mid-turn, a maneuver so fast, even Callisto's taken aback. Colossus and Nightcrawler are still skeptical. In fact, they're downright terrified. Killing is not the X-Men's way, and Storm has personally taken a vow to never take life. She's already done so before in her youth during self-defense, and that event scarred her so much, she promised to never do it again. And yet here she is, engaging in a duel to the death with Callisto for the life of her friends. And it's at this moment that Aurora shows the entire world, X-Men, Morlocks, and everyone in between, that she doesn't need lightning, wind, or rain in order to be Storm. They circle warily, each gauging the other's skills, strengths, and weaknesses. Callisto is a born huntress, her mutant genes giving her enhanced physical abilities that rival Wolverine's. Also, she's fought all her life. She has no doubt of the outcome here, but she means to enjoy herself in the process. She feints. Storm parries. Callisto draws first blood and laughs at Storm's clumsy response. I almost pity you, Silvertop. You're making this too easy. And you, Callisto, talk too much. My arm! And just like that, the fight is over. With a blade to the heart, Callisto shudders for a moment before dropping her blade and falling down. Storm walks over Callisto's motionless body, frees Angel, and assumes control of the Morlocks. She tells everyone watching that if anyone has a problem with what she just did and what she's doing, they can challenge her and risk the same fate as Callisto. But at the same time, she also extends an olive branch to the Morlocks. They can come to the surface and live in Professor X's mansion, a true mutant sanctuary. Caliban of the Morlocks turns her down, saying that their true place is in the underground. But he's appreciative of her offer and hopes that the two groups can now move forward in peace as friends. We also find out by way of Nightcrawler that Callisto is actually alive, thanks to a last-minute effort from one of their healers. However, Callisto's survival was not a factor in Storm's actions. This was a fact that no one saw coming. Not Nightcrawler, not Colossus, and definitely not Callisto. And it was this miscalculation that cost her the Morlocks and almost her life. Storm had won the day, and just as Callisto instructed, she did so without a single bolt of lightning or a gust of wind. Now that we've gone through the issue in full, let's break it down and talk about just what makes it so iconic. The fight really isn't flashy or super impressive by modern standards. It's really quick, only lasting 2 pages. Even so, this scene has stood the test of time as one of the most iconic fights of comic book history. And I think its simplicity and quickness demonstrate exactly why it's so iconic. Have you ever seen a real fight? Have you ever been in one? They tend to be pretty quick. This isn't an exhibition. This is a fight to the death, where both combatants have their lives and their respective teams on the line. This isn't the time to show off with big flashy fancy moves. It's kill or be killed. I love the panel composition here. We're treated to a lot of different points of view, and it's easy to see what each combatant is doing. You feel every single moment of motion and every moment of impact. When Storm misses, when Callisto connects, when Callisto feels like she has it in the bag, and when Storm flips the script. I love how she uses the train of her dress to rope Callisto's arm. It's a pure street fighting tactic that shows us that Storm's capabilities are far beyond weather manipulation. She knows how to survive. That's what this whole scene says to me. Callisto may be a hunter, but Storm is a survivor. And if it's one thing that every hunter will tell you you need to be aware of, it's backing an animal into a corner when their survival instincts kick in. And the end of the fight, where Storm walks past a falling Callisto, is just pure iconic. And it's scenes like this that show off one of the strengths of old school comic book art. They didn't have a lot of the staples that modern art has. I mean, hell, everyone's in flat colors. But even so, it's beautiful. There's no excessive violence, but damn if you don't feel everything. I mean, just look at this face. Callisto is definitely having an oh shit moment. Also, goddamn, look at the back of Storm's arms. Jesus Christ, hello, punch me harder, mommy. So there we have it. Storm's first powerless mad last moment. But we are not done with this video yet. As I mentioned at the start, this scene has been adapted twice in other mediums. Once directly adapted in the animated series, and one more referenced in X3 The Last Stand. Her fight with Callisto in the cartoon is more or less the same thing we see here, just with a few elements changed. They're there to save Cyclops instead of Angel. Also, this is a kid's show, so they're not going to really have them fighting with knives. Instead, they use these cool American Gladiator style staffs that have these laser ends. And the fight choreography is really good, especially given the time and the constraints of the censors that this scene was made in.
Use your mutant powers in any way. A crack of thunder, the slightest breeze, and my Morlocks will kill your people.
Agreed!
You're slow, Storm. Surface life make you soft?
Keep your head, lady.
shall not die. Killing is not the X-men's way. Morlocks, you no longer need to live in darkness.
They wanted to display her as more stalwart and heroic instead of survival, do whatever it takes. But the result is still the same. Storm assumes leadership of the Morlocks, offers them a place on the surface. The Morlocks reject but appreciate her answer. The aftermath is even the same, in that Storm's leadership of the Morlocks was actually pretty crappy. She kinda didn't do anything with them. She wouldn't even go down there to check on them. And this actually leads to them having more bad blood, which would be revisited at later episodes, just like it became an issue later on in the comics. Last but not least, I do want to shout out Storm and Callisto's fight in X-Men 3. Now, as some of you know, I am of the controversial but correct opinion that Halle Berry's portrayal of Storm in X3 is actually okay. And one of the reasons for this is the fact that she actually gets something to do instead of just being the support weather person. This is the only time in these movies we see her fight, and that fact alone is criminal, but it's better than nothing. She's played in the movies by Dania Ramirez, who you may recognize as the older sister from Fat Albert. I don't know why I just said that. It's probably 5 of y'all in this audience that watch Fat Albert. Whatever, I'll leave it in. In this movie, her team is called the Omegas, who are more extreme and made up more of outcasts than those who have been accepted by society. They link up with Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants and work together for the rest of the movie. Side note, I had no idea that this was Callisto when this movie first came out. I mean, and that's no shade to Dania Ramirez, but I'm sorry, she's just too pretty, okay? She even got both eyes. Why does she not have an eye patch? Anyway, on to the fight itself. She has this super speed ability. She actually wins their first exchange this way, but when they have their rematch at the climax of the movie, Storm's on to her by this point. So while she's doing her whole Quicksilver impersonation, Storm reads her like a book. And well...
Yes, I can definitely smell shite.
Still, could be worse. My nose could be gushing blood.
That covers the fights between Storm and Callisto. They would continue to cross paths and fight each other throughout different points of the comic book continuities, and their most recent exchange actually just happened a few years ago. But for this video, I wanted to focus on the first time, the very first time, because there's nothing like your first time. But tell me what you thought of this moment. What did you think of the fight? Which is your favorite version of the fight? Thanks for watching and listening. This is Anime at Storm Corey HQ, your one-stop shop for all things Storm and Starfire. And until next time, keep simping.